My name is Ellie Chen, and for as long as I can remember, Chen's Furniture was my life. Our family business wasn't just a company, it was our legacy, our identity, our future. At least, that's what I was always told. Founded by my grandfather over 50 years ago, Chen's had grown from a small workshop into a respected regional furniture manufacturer with 3 retail locations and a loyal customer base. My father took over the business when I was just a child, expanding it further and cementing our family's reputation for quality craftsmanship and impeccable service. From the moment I could walk, I was in that workshop, breathing in the scent of fresh-cut wood and varnish, watching skilled hands transform raw materials into beautiful pieces. By 12, I was helping during summer breaks, learning every aspect of the business, from sourcing materials to final quality inspections. By 16, I was designing my own pieces, some of which actually sold well enough to become part of our regular catalog. I loved everything about it: the creative process, the satisfaction of making something with your hands, the pride of seeing customers cherish pieces that would become part of their family's stories. I never questioned that someday Chen's would be mine to lead into the future. My brother Michael felt differently. 2 years older than me, he viewed the family business as an obligation rather than a passion. He did what was required, working summers, learning the basics, but his heart was never in it. He studied business administration in college, focusing on general management rather than anything specific to our industry. I, on the other hand, studied furniture design and business, tailoring my entire education around eventually taking over Chen's. I interned with renowned designers, learned about sustainable sourcing and manufacturing, and developed ideas for modernizing our production while maintaining our commitment to quality. When I graduated, I presented my father with a comprehensive business plan for Chen's future. I had identified untapped market segments, innovative designs that would appeal to younger customers while honoring our traditional craftsmanship, and strategies for expanding our online presence without cannibalizing our retail location. I expected praise or at least thoughtful consideration. Instead, my father barely glanced at my carefully prepared presentation before setting it aside. "This is all very creative, Ellie," he said, his tone dismissive, "but running Chen's requires more than just design ideas and marketing concepts." "I know that, Dad," I replied, confused by his reaction. "That's why I included detailed financial projections, operational improvements, and—" "It's not about what's on paper," he interrupted. "It's about leadership, authority, being able to command respect from our employees and suppliers." Something in his tone made my stomach clench. "And you don't think I can do that?" He sighed, looking uncomfortable for the first time. "Ellie, you're very talented, your designs are wonderful, and customers love you. But taking over the entire operation, that requires a different skill set." "A skill set I don't have because—" I left the question hanging, already dreading the answer. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. "This industry is traditional. Our employees, our suppliers, our biggest clients, they expect a certain type of leadership. Michael has the right presence for that role." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you saying I can't run Chen's because I'm a woman?" "I'm saying Michael will have an easier time commanding the respect this position requires," he replied, his tone growing firmer. "This isn't about your capabilities, it's about what's best for the business." "Michael doesn't even care about furniture. He doesn't know the first thing about design or quality control or—" "He understands finance and management," my father cut in. "The rest can be learned or delegated. The decision has been made, Ellie." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Made? You've already decided this without even discussing it with me? Your mother and I have been talking about succession planning for some time. Michael will take over as CEO when I retire next year. You'll continue as head of design, of course. Your talent there is valuable." "Head of design?" I repeated hollowly, "while Michael, who couldn't tell oak from pine, runs the company I've spent my entire life preparing to lead." My father's expression hardened. "That's enough, Ellie. This attitude is exactly why we have concerns about your leadership abilities. The decision is final." I left his office in a daze, tears burning behind my eyes. In the hallway, I bumped into Michael, who gave me an awkward smile that told me everything he already knew. "Ellie, I brushed past him without a word, unable to bear whatever platitude he was about to offer. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing with a mixture of hurt, betrayal, and growing anger. The next morning, I requested a meeting with both my parents. I needed to hear from my mother too to understand if she truly believed I wasn't capable of leading Chen's. We sat in my father's office, the morning light streaming through the windows, illuminating the photographs on the wall. 3 generations of Chen's, a legacy I was apparently not worthy to continue. I want to understand, I began, keeping my voice steady through sheer force of will. After everything I've done, all the preparation, all the passion I've shown for this business, why don't you believe in me? My mother, usually the mediator in family disagreements, looked uncomfortable. Ellie, it's not that we don't believe in you, we just think Michael's strengths are better suited to the CEO position. What strengths, exactly? He barely shows up for work, has no passion for furniture, and definitely doesn't have the respect of the craftsmen in the workshop. He has a natural authority, my father insisted. People listen when he speaks. People listen to him because he's your son and they respect you, I countered. I've earned respect through my knowledge and hard work. My mother sighed. Ellie, please try to understand. This is a difficult industry for a woman to lead. We're just trying to protect you from inevitable challenges. There it was, the truth finally spoken aloud. They didn't think I could lead because I was a woman in a traditionally male industry, not because of my capabilities, my vision, or my dedication, but because of my gender. I took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but now it was crystallizing into resolve. I see, I said quietly. Thank you for being honest. I'd like to request some time off to think about my future role with the company. My father looked relieved that I wasn't fighting anymore. Of course. Take a few weeks if you need to. When you come back, we can discuss your expanded design responsibility. I nodded and left without another word. But I wasn't planning to come back, at least, not in the way they expected. That evening, I called my best friend from design school, Lynn, who had gone on to work for a major furniture retailer. They gave the company to Michael, I said when she answered, not bothering with pleasantries. What? That's insane. He doesn't know anything about furniture. Apparently, he has the right presence for leadership, I replied, the bitterness evident in my voice. That's such bullshit, Ellie. What are you going to do? I hesitated for just a moment. I'm thinking of starting my own company. The silence on the other end told me she understood the magnitude of what I was suggesting. Going up against a well-established family business wasn't just a career move, it was a declaration of war. I'm in, she said finally. Whatever you need, my current contract ends in 3 months. That was the beginning of Elysian Designs. I spent those 3 months meticulously planning using everything I had learned about Chen's operations, their suppliers, their pricing strategies, their customer base. I knew their weaknesses, the opportunities they were missing, the changes in the market they were too traditional to embrace. I had saved a substantial amount over the years, living frugally while my peers splurged on luxury apartments and expensive vacations. I had been saving for a house, but this was more important. This was my future. Lynn and I secured a small business loan using my savings as collateral. We found a modest workshop space in an up-and-coming area across town, far enough from Chen's territory to avoid immediate comparison, but close enough to access the same skilled labor pool. We recruited 2 talented craftsmen from my grandfather's era who had retired from Chen's when my father took over, artisans who had been sidelined for being too traditional despite their exceptional skills. They became our production leads, training a small team of younger workers eager to learn real craftsmanship in an age of mass production. For our designs, we took inspiration from both traditional techniques and contemporary aesthetics, creating pieces that honored the past while embracing modern sensibilities. We also did something Chen's had resisted for years. We embraced technology using digital design tools, 3D modeling, and social media marketing to reach younger customers. Most importantly, we focused on sustainable practices from day one, responsibly sourced materials, minimal waste, non-toxic finishes. It wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. The market was increasingly environmentally conscious, and Chen's reluctance to modernize their production processes had created a perfect opportunity for us. 6 months after my father told me I wasn't fit to lead, Elysian Designs launched with a small collection of stunning, sustainable, meticulously crafted furniture. We eschewed a traditional storefront initially, selling exclusively online and through select boutique retailers who aligned with our values. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Design blogs featured our pieces, sustainability advocates praised our production methods, and customers, many of whom used to shop at Chen's, placed orders faster than our small team could fulfill them. I didn't tell my family about Elysian. I had officially resigned from Chen's via email, citing personal reasons, and had minimal contact with my parents or brother in the months that followed. Part of me hoped they might reach out, might recognize what they had lost, but the silence from their end was deafening. Until, one day, it wasn't. "Ellie?" My mother's voice came through the phone, sounding strained. "We need to talk. It's about your company." So they knew. Of course they did. Our industry was small and Elysian was making waves. "What about it?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "You're directly competing with Chen's, using knowledge you gained while working for us." That's not right." I almost laughed. Not right? What wasn't right was dismissing everything I had to offer because I wasn't born a man. What wasn't right was handing the company to someone who sees it as a burden rather than a passion. "Ellie, please, this is causing problems. Several of our younger designers have applied to work for you. 2 of our best craftsmen gave notice last week. You're hurting the family business." "I'm running my business," I corrected her, just like Dad always taught me to do. If Chen's can't retain talent, perhaps that's a leadership issue you should discuss with your CEO. She was silent for a moment. "Your father wants to meet with you, to discuss a solution." I agreed to the meeting, curious about what my father considered a solution to the situation. We met at a neutral location, a small cafe halfway between our respective businesses. My father looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper, his shoulders slightly stooped. Michael was with him, looking uncomfortable and out of place. "Ellie," my father began, his tone conciliatory, "you've built something impressive. Your designs are excellent, your marketing is effective." I waited, saying nothing. "But this competition isn't good for either of us. We're splitting the customer base, confusing the market about what Chen Furniture stands for." "Elysian Furniture," I corrected him. "My company has nothing to do with Chen's." He waved a hand dismissively. "The point is, this situation is untenable. We'd like to propose a merger." I blinked, genuinely surprised. "A merger?" "Yes, we would absorb Elysian under the Chen's brand. You would come back as head of design with expanded responsibilities and appropriate compensation. We'd implement some of your sustainability initiatives across our production." I looked at Michael, who was studying his coffee cup with intense interest. "And the leadership structure?" "Michael would remain CEO, of course," my father said quickly, "but you would have more input on strategic decisions." I considered the offer for a moment. It was, in some ways, a validation, an admission that what I had built was valuable, that my vision had merit. It was also, I realized, driven by fear. Chen's numbers must be suffering if they were willing to make this offer. "I appreciate the proposal," I said carefully, "but I'm not interested in a merger. Elysian is doing extremely well as an independent company." My father's expression darkened. "Ellie, be reasonable. You're a small operation. You can't possibly compete with Chen's infrastructure, our retail network, our history." "Actually, we just secured funding to open our first flagship showroom," I interrupted, "and we've been approached by 3 national retailers interested in carrying our line. As for history, we're making our own." Michael finally looked up. "It's true, Dad. Their growth metrics are impressive. Their social media following is 10 times ours, and their profit margins are higher because they don't have our overhead." My father shot him an annoyed look before turning back to me. "What do you want, Ellie? To destroy what your grandfather built? To tear apart this family over pride?" "I wanted to lead Chen's into the future," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "You decided I wasn't qualified to do that, so I built something else. Something that reflects my values and vision. I didn't do it to hurt you or the family business. I did it because you left me no choice." "There's always a choice," he insisted. "Yes," I agreed. "And I've made mine." I stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. "If you're serious about wanting to work together, I'd be open to a different kind of arrangement. Elysian could acquire Chen's traditional furniture line, preserving your father's legacy and craftsmanship while allowing you to focus on your more commercial products. My father's face flushed with anger. Acquire? You think your little startup could acquire a part of Chen's? I smiled slightly. Give it 6 months. Call me when you're ready to have that conversation. I walked out, feeling lighter than I had in months. I had faced them on my terms, as an equal, no, as a competitor they needed to take seriously. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of growth for Elysian. We opened our flagship showroom, a beautiful space that showcased not just our furniture, but the stories behind each piece, the craftspeople who made them, the sustainable materials we used, the design inspiration. Meanwhile, Chen's was struggling. Michael's lack of passion for the business had translated into a lack of vision. They had tried to copy some of our sustainability messaging without making real changes to their production, a half-measure customers saw through immediately. Their attempt to appeal to younger customers with cheaper, trendier pieces had alienated their traditional base without successfully attracting new ones. 8 months after our cafe meeting, I received a call from an unexpected source, my grandfather. "Ellie," he said, his voice still strong despite his 85 years, "I want to see your workshop this weekend." I agreed immediately. Despite everything, I still craved his approval. He had been the first to put a chisel in my hand, the first to praise my eye for design. That Saturday, I gave him a tour of our operation. He said little, just nodded occasionally, running his hand over finished pieces, examining joints and finishes with a craftsman's critical eye. In our design studio, he finally spoke. "Your father made a mistake?" I stilled, unsure how to respond. "I told him so at the time," he continued. "I told him you had the heart for this business. Michael, he's a good boy, but he doesn't love the wood. You can't lead what you don't love." Tears pricked at my eyes. "Thank you, Grandpa." He fixed me with a serious gaze. "Chen's is in trouble. Your father won't admit it, but it's true. Michael's talking about selling to a conglomerate." My heart sank. Despite everything, I didn't want to see my family's legacy destroyed. Selling? They've had an offer, not a good one. The buyer would keep the Chen name, but move production overseas. Cheaper materials, machine assembly. Everything my grandfather had built, everything I had loved about Chen's, would be gone. "What can I do?" I asked. "Make them a better offer," he said simply. 2 weeks later, I sat across from my father, mother, and brother in the Chen's conference room. On the table between us lay my proposal. Elysian would acquire Chen's, maintaining the separate brands but consolidating operations. "This is the best offer you'll get," I said, addressing Michael directly. "The Mitchell Group will gut the company, lay off the craftsmen, and turn Chen's into just another mass-market brand. We'll preserve what makes Chen's special while updating what needs to change." Michael nodded slowly. "She's right, Dad. I've reviewed both offers thoroughly. Ellie's is better for the company, for the employees, and frankly for our family's legacy." My father sat in stunned silence, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. Everything he had tried to prevent by keeping me from leadership had happened anyway, but worse, because now his precious son wanted out, and his daughter was in a position to save or sink the family business. "What would my role be?" he finally asked, his voice uncharacteristically small. "Chairman Emeritus," I replied promptly, "an advisory position focused on maintaining relationships with our longest-standing clients and partners. Your experience is valuable, Dad." I never said it wasn't. He looked at me for a long moment, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time seeing not his little girl but a capable business leader who had built something substantial through her own vision and determination. "And the Chen name? The legacy?" "Preserved and honored," I promised. "That's my legacy, too." 3 months later, the acquisition was complete. Chen's and Elysian operated as sister brands under a new parent company, Legacy Designs. My grandfather came out of retirement to serve as a special advisor, his joy at being back in a workshop evident to everyone. Michael, relieved of the burden of running a company he never wanted, took a generous severance package and started a venture capital firm focusing on sustainable businesses, something he actually cared about. My father struggled at first with his diminished role, but gradually came to appreciate the freedom it gave him. He spent more time with longtime clients, telling stories about the early days, serving as the company's historian and ambassador. As for me, I finally achieved the leadership position I had earned, though through a path I never could have imagined. The company thrived under my direction, expanding into new markets while maintaining the craftsmanship and quality that had always been the Chen family hallmark. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my father had simply given me the chance I deserved from the beginning. Would Shen's have evolved naturally, avoiding the crisis that nearly destroyed it? Would our family have been spared the tension and conflict of those difficult years? But then I look at what I've built. Not just a business, but a confidence and self-reliance I might never have developed otherwise. I was forced to prove myself not just as a furniture designer, but as a visionary, a leader, an entrepreneur. Sometimes, being told you're not good enough is exactly the motivation you need to become better than anyone imagined possible, even yourself.